Okay, I'm going to attempt to be brief about this. This is a presentation regarding the fundamental concept, form in Wing Chun, or the Siu Lim Tao, the little idea, and specifically the centerline theory, right? This idea of a centerline theory, and this is the approach to centerline theory as I understand it. I started learning Wing Chun in a systemized approach under the direction of a Sifu John Nielsen first in 2009. I was brand new, just home from war, and I was a soldier at the time, and I was looking to expand my martial prowess and my meditative experiences on the martial systems, and as a martial artist, a martial thinker, right, as a practitioner of the arts of war. I was looking for expansion. I think I was a junior enlisted at the time. I was maybe a junior NCO, non-commissioned officer. So, I was a young leader of men, and an early practitioner of instructing soldiers. So I had a low-level skill set, but I could teach. I could teach. Anyways, I come out of the war and I found my school. I chose Wing Chun because it was introduced to me in parts when I was a teenager to help keep me safe. I had friends who were pretty good fighters, and I was tough, but I was not a very good fighter, and I was also kind of not tough. Well, I could take a lot from my friends, but I wasn't. I was still prone to being bullied, so they had introduced things to me, and from different schools that they had gone to. I had a friend who we called him a ninja. Cody the Ninja introduced me to some rolling techniques to escape and evade, and a friend of mine, Jake, had introduced me to some stance and shifting practices from a Wing Chun system, and everything was very relevant, and it was really great. So that was in my heart from the time I was young, and I had this interest in learning more because it was helpful to me, and it helped keep me safe. So, back to the point here, I obtained a Sifu in the very beginning of the program. One of the very first things we learned was the centerline theory, and he gave the examples of the center line coming off of what they call the Johnson, right, or the medial line. So the line that comes from here forward off of me, and this is where a lot of people limit their presentation of centerline theory. I don't know if they're actually limited in their concepts of it, but this is where they often limit the presentation. But Sifu Nielsen was a very good thinker, and I got along really well with him because he thought martially, he thought very realistically, and when he presented fundamental concepts, they were really fundamental concepts that were effective and accurate, and they were useful to me immediately as a soldier. And they were things that I had learned also in basic combat training. They were very relative. So one of those things was that, I have an axis. So you have an axis, and from your axis, in theory, you have infinite lines that go off in theory in infinite directions all the way around you, and you have them going off of this medial plane. You have them going off of this mid-sagittal plane. You have them going off of your different planes, right? If looking at you from the top, there's this axis here, but also from the center, there's that, and so in theory, infinite lines going in infinite directions. And that was a wonderful thing to present because it was very, very relative as a warfighter. We also recognized that depending on the systems, right, and depending on the weapons that I had at my disposal, my reach might be only, this radius around me, as far as my hand or my foot can get in an effective presentation, right? So I may be able to acquire a target visually or audibly or whatever, or by feel, but I can only be effective against that target at certain ranges and certain points and certain angles of approach. So my center line theory is very much coming into necessity for me to grasp these concepts, right? So I have so far I can get with my hand combat system, and then I can extend my hand combat system with swords, knives, swords, pole, right? And then I can get into some ranged systems. I can extend to the hand gun, and I might be able to start, using, my small arms to get a greater radius to which I'm effective off of my lines. I can use greater small arms and maybe start getting to my rifles, right? And modern, we might start recognizing our 9mm or 45s and things like this, and our 5.56, 223, 7.62, etc. Small arms, and we can really expand my reach and my radius. And fundamentally, this was really awesome to me because I started to see myself almost immediately as, yes, this is me, but this is also all of the other bodies that are out on the field, right? And so, in concept, in theory, I started being able to track and relate this lesson to my my basic movements and my basic infantry concepts, basic soldiering skills, basic skills of a warfighter. And so, I have me and I have these reaches, but I might, also if I have a squad of personnel, even if it's a small team of that squad, and I've got, between us we have 3, we can now create, depending on the weapon systems we're using, we can create overlap in our effectiveness, our effective ranges. We can create better angular approaches because we have terrain features that might be in the way that this is a hill, right? So we might have terrain features that are in the way that we can have better because we have line of sight here. Now he has this line and I have this line, so enemy can see me more clearly than he can see him. He might be more focused here. I can draw his focuses and attention while he comes in and approaches enemy from here. And it goes on, right? Like in theory, this system can allow me to also grasp these concepts where, I have, artillery that I set up out in the distance. And these, maybe this is naval artillery. Maybe I've got this on the Pearl River Delta floating on a junker that I push around with poles. Maybe I have, an air force also, or some other, defense system out in the distance, a missile defense system or something, or a counter, or artillery, counter artillery or something like this, right? Some other countermeasures that maybe I have. But I have access to all of these, and whatever the number of that I have access to, this centerline theory is still relevant across the battle space. Everywhere I go, everywhere I look, everything functions on these things, and all of the physics matter. And this is why they call centerline a theory. That's why it's recognized as a theory. It's like a scientific approach to recognizing the center of the bodies in the battle space. And fundamentally, we begin all of this lesson around you, just you, and your begins. And the idea that you have a center, and from it you have lines that you can approach on, and there are lines that you can have intersect, and you can create wedges around you with your hands and your legs, your feet, and this creates strength and stability and allows you to mitigate injury as you deal with combat at this close of quarters. And it just starts there with the hands. But all of that is centerline theory.